do see the vision of we needed to be bigger anyway. If you can play down by the paint, if you can play down by the basket, if you can get points there, that will be helpful to Luka. It is a way of, you just brought this up, Mike, being able to pass out of it if they're dominating or go to something else. If JaVale McGee can do some things with Luka, some lobs and all those kind of things, they're going to have to honor it. And then that opens up things for Luka. That's what they were trying to do with Dwight Powell. They were trying to make it effective with Dwight Powell, but they couldn't. Once a team said we have a big that can actually defend that, then it couldn't. But if you can find a way to do it, then it can be good. And you can do it with Wood or McGee if you're a bigger team. But there are a lot of other questions you have, Mike, about this roster.
Well, I would say what you're bringing up right there is, I think Jason Kidd, because I don't want to say he's old school, because that's not, sometimes old school has this bad mentality to it. But I do think he really thinks about defense first. Reggie, would you agree with that general statement that Jason Kidd's first thought when he's constructing his starting lineup, or maybe and I don't think his starting lineup will be his finishing five, do you think that he thinks defensively, I want to get off to a good start when games start? Or do you think he's thinking more about offense?
Well, it's tough to say that because, with Maxi Kleber coming off the bench and Dwight Powell starting last season, I don't know that you can make the case that they're thinking defense first. But it's definitely something that, I could say easily, it's a huge emphasis for him. So I don't even know if it's like the first, but it's something that he cares about to a great degree. Probably more
it's
than
interesting
other
that you say that, because he said in that audio the points will be there.
Yeah.
He just believes that the points are going to, Luka and whatever, they'll make the points.
Right.
So I think you might be right, because he just assumes that's going to happen, but he knows he needs pieces on defense to stop what Golden State, or attempt to stop what Golden State did to them.
So I think he doesn't look, when you're talking about McGee, I don't think he looks at him as an offensive weapon at all. I think he sees him as a guy who can set a pick for Luka and dive to the basket, catch it, and dunk it. But that's it. He's not going to ever give him the ball in any other situation besides, you're going to set a pick for Luka. If Luka sees that they've committed to you, just roll to the basket, and Luka's unbelievable at getting you the ball so you can either alley-oop it or just catch it and dunk it.
But he's an upgrade defensively over Powell.
Oh my, by a million times.
Yeah.
And rebounding. Look, I'm going to be honest. Powell's one of the worst players in the NBA who actually plays minutes in the NBA. I don't think there's really many people worse than him at his position that actually get to play. But I think Christian Wood is the guy that he's probably thinking offensively now with Luka, could maybe, I know he scored points on a crap team and somebody has to score, but I think that he can still get you close to 20. But I think defensively, when you start looking at, Luka still has to improve. As in, he did get better. He has to still keep improving. And then Wood talked about it quite a bit on, I think you might have seen the interview too, where Woods talked about, Jason Kidd immediately mentioned defense to me when he was out in Vegas and getting to talk is, I think that he sees the team with McGee and Wood, and I'm going to assume Dorian Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie, and Luka as your starting five, that those guys, if they're committed, can be an above average defensive team. And maybe the way that you saw it, Reggie, is maybe not with so many smoke and mirrors after the Porzingis trade, that they were able to construct a decent defense. Maybe with the talent. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The defensive talent for sure.
Right. Especially
with the length and athleticism.
Yes. That's what I was going to get to, because they had a lot of, even in the postseason, when you could look up and say they don't have a really great big out there, they had a lot of length to kind of compensate for that. Now you still have that length plus a big who's going to be somewhat of a rim protector, who's going to be able to be a deterrent in the middle. I think that alone will kind of change the way that teams play you when you're on defense.
Just think about, and I know I'm going back to Golden State Warriors, they won the championship, and obviously they had something. They were able to say, Andrew, we have so much length everywhere, and then Steph Curry, an offensive weapon, that Andrew Wiggins is our X factor on defense, because he can go be the guy that we're going to put on somebody who nobody really thought he was a lockdown defender his entire career until he stands up against every single dude. He made it difficult. That's all you got to do is find matchups that make things difficult, and I don't think the Mavericks had the ability to tweak their matchups last season in the playoffs whenever they finally got up against a team that had other offensive weapons too.
Yeah, and then if that's your starting five, if it's Wood and McGee as your bigs starting, And then it is, I'm going to assume Dorian Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie as your wings, and then Luka playing the point guard role. That gives you Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock, and Maxi Kleba as your main bench guys. I'm hoping
points, right?
Yeah, well, Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to shoot it 1,000 times. I mean, we already know that he's going to do that. And then, Maxi can give you 10 and Bullock can give you 10, right? You're hoping that Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't think he's ever going to be able to be an efficient scorer. He just never will. He's a volume guy. In some games, he's going to be 10 of 14 for 28 points. In some games, he's going to be 2 of 14 for 4 points. And he's always going to get the 14 shots. It's just a matter of he's going to make 2 or 10 of them.
Yeah.
And that's who he kind of is. And I'm not mentioning the other guys. Not that I don't think at times that a guy like Josh Green or a guy like Bertans, or I'm trying to go down the list, maybe Ntilikina. I know that, Jaden Hardy plays tonight, and I messed up. It's against the Utah Jazz later tonight. I think I mentioned that on our show in Crosstalk. Yeah. I thought it might have been Oklahoma City, but those guys are going to contribute in the regular season. But right now, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, you have your 5 starters, and then you have Hardaway, Bullock, and Maxey. Those are your 8 guys that would play playoff minutes. Everybody else is going to sit and watch unless you're in injury concerns or somebody really improves in the regular season like a Green or a Hardy or a Ntilikina that you think maybe can play more. And when you said, Mike, what's your concerns? And maybe it's for a bigger discussion than the last 3 minutes here is we are going back to Luka has to do everything. And this is where I don't know how this adds up, Reggie, as I want this cut is it's cut 12 on kind of Luka and what he would like Jason Kidd on what he'd kind of like Luka to add.
Well, the biggest thing is no stress. If you ask him or anybody in that locker room, we talk about no stress. And so that means playing without the ball. When you talk about he's going to have the ball the last 6 minutes or the last 3 minutes, but I want to be able to use him behind the defense. And I thought he accepted that role for us with Brunson or Dinwiddie.
Yeah.
And so when we have those type of playmakers on the floor, sometimes you can rest in those minutes. But again, he's 23 years old and he believes he can take on the world. And so our job is to help him understand that he can play behind the defense and have success that way too.
All right, so I understand he mentioned Dinwiddie, and Dinwiddie is a below average starting point guard. Every time he's asked to be the point guard, Washington, they're like, oh no, we've messed up. And then Brooklyn, it was like, yeah, there's some numbers here, but we got to get a lot better than this. This isn't good enough. So he's kind of a backup point guard rather than a starting point guard, where I know that Brunson wasn't the starting point guard, but he had starting point guard in him. If that's why New York gave him all that money. It's one thing to say, I want that and to ask. And then I think that as the season went on, Luka kept trusting that was working a little bit here and there, but it's going to be interesting to see, can he play off the ball at times the way that Jason Kidd describes it, with literally only having Dinwiddie as another guy who can handle and move the basketball.